Sleeping at home tonight. There must be more than 1,000 people, all kinds of families, all over this basin, choosing to come out here, sleep in their cars, sleep on the ground, sleep in tents, rather than go back to their homes. I'm with Louise McGill, whose third-floor apartment just shook you right into this park, didn't you? Why are you here?
Well, I'm here primarily because I couldn't take the aftershocks anymore. They were just too hard. The building was rolling too much, and my nerves were just too frayed. I wanted to get on the ground.
And yet, your apartment, everybody's homes were damaged, but your apartment was not structurally damaged to your knowledge.
As far as I know, structurally, we're okay. Everybody had personal damage in the whole building, but no injuries. And no exterior damage. We didn't have a problem with any cars underneath. We got them all out. Everything seems to be pretty sound. It's just that our nerves are shot.
Your parents are in their home, damaged as it was. You couldn't get them out. I suppose there are lots of stories like that around Los Angeles.
They're just a few blocks up on Balboa Boulevard, and they're in an apartment building also. They're on the same level floor. I made it to their house this morning about 10 o'clock. They've got a lot of personal damage. It took them 15 minutes just to crawl out of the bedroom. No, they won't leave. They feel safer, I think, in the apartment. But if you're out there, Mom and Dad, we're in the park and we're fine, and you know how to reach me. So if they need me, they're going to page me on my beeper. They know the signal to put in, and I'll go up and see about them. This is as close as I can get.
Is it working, Louise? Are your nerves calming down? Are you feeling better to be out here with? Don't you think there must be more than 1,000 people out here? Yeah. Do you feel better?
I feel a lot safer out here. I think everybody does. Being on the ground and being out in the open, we're not near wires or telephone poles. Everybody seems to have pretty much settled in for the night, and we're prepared, to be comfortable.
Well, good luck. I hope that everybody has a secure night. Mike, Chris, this is where a lot of people are spending the night.
Patty, you've introduced us to several people who apparently didn't have any serious damage to their home, Patty, who just didn't feel comfortable with all those aftershocks, and they wanted to be out in the open. Apparently a lot of them.
You know, Michael, we know what it feels like in the newsroom to have all those things overhead just kind of hanging precariously, and most of the people out here said at least they don't have to worry about that. I think we understand it.
Yeah, we do. Okay.
Let's go to the I-10, another freeway that is going to be out of commission for a long time, at least in that sort of between La Cienega and La Brea, in that section right there. Let's check in with Drew Griffin, who has been keeping an eye on that for us tonight. Drew?
And as the work goes on here, they just brought in a bunch of equipment to shore up the portion of the I-10 here between Fairfax and Washington that is still up and is still a good piece of roadway. They brought in steel beams and pieces of wood to shore that up because tomorrow morning, at 6 o'clock in the morning, they're going to begin ripping down the portion that has collapsed that you see behind me here. They'll use some rather large machinery that they have fortunately brought in, and it'll take them 4 or 5 days to rip down this, about a 100-foot section of freeway that has literally collapsed upon itself. But I talked with Dave Elliott. He is one of the bridge construction engineers for Caltrans, and just this job alone, he estimates, will take a good 6 months to repair. So that is about, that's, I believe, the first indication of just how long we're going to be without the 10, at least in this area. Caltrans does have some rerouting that's going to go on, and we'll see how that works tomorrow. But again, construction to tear down this portion of the freeway begins tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Construction project that could take 6 months.
6 months. I wonder, Drew, if it's going to take 6 months for that entire stretch along there, or just that one section. Will they be attempting to fix all of that stretch along there at the same time, or will they prioritize and hit certain bridges first?
I'm sure after we've seen the support, especially from Washington, D.C., and some of that federal money that Federico Pena is talking about, we'll see a lot of simultaneous construction projects. He was specifically talking about just this one project. If he were to come in here and fix this, it would take 6 months. Now, I'm sure that we'll have a lot of these projects going on simultaneously. So hopefully 6 months is the longest we'll be looking for the entire freeway to be closed.
We're still thinking that may be optimistic, but again, we're hopeful maybe they can do it in that length of time. Drew Griffin, thank you very much for that live report from the 10.
Well, the idea is to try to stay off the freeways if you can for the near future, to at least let authorities have a chance to see how whatever emergency plans they put in place, how they're going to work out. And we know that a lot of the major schools are closed. There's an awful lot going on in that department. And let's get the latest on that. Let's go to the update desk and Tricia Toyota. Tricia?
Well, you're right, Chris and Mike. Los Angeles City schools are going to be closed tomorrow, although they are asking that the administrators and the teachers report to classes just to make sure that there is no major structural damage there. There are curfews all around Southern California. The city of Burbank has just imposed a dusk to dawn curfew. So if you're out on the streets of Burbank, you are likely to get stopped by the police and asked what you're doing. Also earlier today, the cities of Los Angeles and Glendale, Santa Monica, and San Fernando have also imposed curfews to protect lives and property there. The death toll, 27 people, 16 of those victims dying in that Northridge apartment building, which collapsed. More than 1,100 people have been injured badly enough to go to a hospital. LA residents are now being urged to boil their water for at least 20 minutes because of the contamination in the water mains. DWP says that a major treatment plant has broken down and they're not able to chlorinate the water sufficiently for safety. Now, if you need help tonight, I'm going to give you some phone numbers, so get a pencil and write these down. If you want to find shelter, if you're having trouble perhaps with the utility service, there are several numbers to call. To reach the Red Cross, call this number, 213-739-5200. The Red Cross now has 9 shelters open in the Los Angeles area. For trouble with water and power service, DWP customers can call 1-800-DIAL-DWP, 1-800-DIAL-DWP. And for customers of Southern California Gas Company, 213-244-3030. That's 213-244-3030. But of course, keep in mind that there are widespread power outages, widespread gas outages. DWP is saying that only about 40% of all of the customers in Los Angeles, they have about 1.5 million, 1,075,000 customers, and most of those people, only 40% have power as we are talking here. And of course, utilities are being swamped with phone calls. I just want to give you the latest 5 Red Cross shelters that have opened. Reseda High School in Reseda, in the Santa Clarita Valley, Canyon High School in Santa Clarita, Central Los Angeles High School has been opened up, Hollywood High School on North Highland Avenue here in Hollywood, and also in Burbank, the Jocelyn Center on West Olive. Chris and Mike.
All right, thank you very much, Tricia. An awful lot of folks are going to be sleeping under the stars tonight, and Patty Ecker was telling us a little while ago that maybe 1,000 people are camped out in various locations.
And that's at one location. I'll bet that scene is repeated. Maybe not quite as many people, but we've already seen it in various other locations around, and it will be throughout Southern California.
We're going to check in with Patty again in just a couple of minutes, but first we're going to go back to Caltech right now and talk to Joe Avalai. Joe?
ILL.
Joe, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're live. Okay, there we are. Sorry about that. We're back here live at Caltech. We're waiting for our 9 o'clock update, and we're looking at a series of aftershocks now. We had one at the last one I'm seeing is at 8:46, is about 2.5 on the Richter scale. And as I look at the series of aftershocks, I do notice that, yes, just as I told you a few minutes ago, we're having aftershocks, every 1, 2, 3 minutes. But what we are noticing is that the frequency may remain, but the strength of the intensity of these aftershocks is diminishing over time. Just as these scientists said it would, it is in fact doing just that. As we wait for Dr. Tom Heaton and Eagle Hawkson, Drs. Tom Heaton and Eagle Hawkson to approach, what I'm going to do is what we've been doing before. We're going to scoot down and we're going to pick it up. Sir, gentlemen, what's the latest that you can tell us? Is anything unusual happening in this series of aftershocks?
This is a very average aftershock sequence for a magnitude 6.6 earthquake. Some earthquake sequences have more than average, some have less. This is right on the average. At this point, we've had 3 magnitude 5s, 8 magnitude 4s, and about 50 magnitude 3s. If it is an average sequence, we can expect about a 50-50 chance of magnitude 5 in the next week, and a small but finite chance of a 6, about a 1 in 12 chance that we'd have a 6 in the next week.
Earlier, Dr. Carey was talking about the possibility that this may actually be a precursor to either something larger, deeper, under the ground, or that's just an indication that we really don't know what's going on in the LA basin. Can you expand on that a little bit?
It's definitely an indication that we're still learning about things that are going on in the LA basin. There are faults in there that only have earthquakes every 20 or 30,000 years, And suddenly over the last 5 or 6 years, we're seeing lots of them have earthquakes. And even though we go further back, go back to the 1933 Long Beach earthquake, we're still learning new lessons about faults in the Los Angeles basin.
This is Dr. Huxon on the right and Dr. Tom Heaton on the left.
What kind of equipment you're deploying in the area to get further readings?
We just deployed in Calabasas this afternoon a new terrascope station, which is a state-of-the-art digital seismograph. We're also deploying in cooperation with the Southern California Earthquake Center a number of portable digital seismograph in the area. We've already deployed something like 8 instruments, and we're having instruments flown in from the East Coast, which will be deployed tomorrow. In addition to that, the U.S. Geological Survey is deploying a number of instruments in the area to record ground motions, especially at different types of rock sites or soil sites, to understand how the waves propagate through the San Fernando Valley.
Can I ask this question, and I don't know if there's really an answer to this, because there's an incredible phenomenon of people staying outside tonight. A lot, thousands and thousands of people are actually gathering in open parks, in open parks because they're afraid to go inside their house, whether there's damage or not. I don't know if you can answer this, but seismically, in terms of earthquake hazard, is there any danger in large numbers of people in open areas with power lines and lights all around? I mean, is there any danger there we should be aware of?
Well, certainly falling power lines can be a hazard. And if people choose to be outside, they would be advised to not be under power lines. But if you are in a very heavy shaking situation, there's no better place to be than in an open field where you can simply enjoy the ride.
We talk about probability, sir, of aftershocks 5.0 and greater. We understand there have been at least 3 or 4 today. The next 72 hours, how critical is it in terms of whether or not people should be going back into homes, even if they're seismically sound, but they just fear going in because of things that might come down?
Well, of course, we saw that we had very heavy shaking already, and people who were in wood frame houses actually did very well. And so I think most people would be advised not to be fearful of their wood frame houses, even if there were some very large aftershock. On the other hand, many people just do not feel comfortable having a roof over their head when it's shaking, and if they choose to stay outside, I could hardly blame them for that.
But this aftershock sequence is common. There's nothing out of the ordinary so far that you've seen.
At this point, this is a very average aftershock sequence.
I gather you lost some of your instrumentation in that area because of the fires. Has that hurt your ability to understand what's happened?
Yeah, it definitely has, in that it makes it somewhat harder to come up with locations or epicenters for these earthquakes, and it makes it particularly difficult to determine the depth of the hypocenter. So actually how deep below the surface the earthquake is kind of difficult to do at the moment. We are, however, getting in more instrumentation. In fact, last week we deployed a seismograph out by Santa Monica Airport because of those earthquakes offshore by Santa Monica, and that in fact has provided quite a few useful readings for this sequence here, even though it's 10 miles to the north.
Dr. Huxon, I gather it's your theory that there's been a cluster of earthquakes along the mountains in that area, and you've noticed a cluster of earthquakes from Culver City down to Long Beach. Are you able to expand on that theory and tell us what it means, or do you yourself know what that means?
If you look at the earthquake history for the Los Angeles basin for the last 100 years, a very clear pattern emerges. There's a cluster of earthquakes from about 1920 to about 1941. And all of those are located south of Culver City, down to Long Beach, culminated with the Long Beach magnitude 6.2 in 1933. And then there's a quiescence period, or a period without activity from 42 until about 1971. And that quiescence period is broken by the San Fernando earthquake, magnitude 6.4 in 71. And since then, we have had a whole series of earthquakes all along the range front, indicating that the range front is the active area today. So
What it means.
What it means, we don't know.
And the range
And that's the end of it.
The range front is
What it
from
means
Santa
at this
Barbara
point,
to Ventura.
the seismologists here at Caltech and USGS just don't know what it means to the larger scheme of things. They're just trying to figure out what's happened, what the numbers are, and they're watching to see what continues to happen. And that's the latest here at Caltech. Back to you.
And Dr. Tom
Claremont.
Keaton says a very, very average sequence. I'm glad to know that we're right on track and very average, though, according to Dr. Hawkson, we're still learning about all this.
Well, they also said that that was a moderate earthquake this morning. Try telling that to anybody who was literally thrown out of bed onto the floor and had portions of their walls collapse around them. That did not feel like a moderate earthquake.
And not to make light of it at all in any way, because we do have a death toll of 27 and a very heavy toll at that one apartment complex in Northridge. And there's a man who's desperately looking for a loved one. We told you earlier, Dave Lopez told us that there was a photograph he was going to show us. I think you have that photograph now of the women that are being being searched for right now.
Yes, Chris, we have 3 photographs in all. Standing in my left is Tom Pasucci. Tom, go ahead and hold that photograph up. Now, this is a very close friend of yours.
Yeah, this is a very good friend of ours. She used to live with us, and she just recently got married, and this is her first apartment.
Her name?
Buffy Jo Grenier Fitch.
Now, she's missing along with her husband, Alan, and they lived on the first floor directly behind us in apartment number
120.
Now, the last time you heard from them was when?
They had a yard sale at our house yesterday morning.
So nothing since the quake this morning?
No, and we've been trying to get in touch. Well, we've been trying to find out where they are all day.
Is there anything to indicate that they may have somehow gotten out of there alive and maybe at a shelter somewhere that you don't know about? Are they the type that would call? I understand you have a number that you want people, in case they know the whereabouts of this woman and her husband, to call.
Well, if they could just call 8860661 to our house, then we could...
Is that an 818 area code?
Yes.
All right. They are not the type of people that would just not call and say we're fine.
No. No, but our lines have been out all day, too. And we would just been able to get out on our phones in the last hour, so.
It must be agonizing. I mean, I know you're very close friends with them. You've been asking all the authorities. I mean, what have they been telling you? Anything at all?
Well, there's no one person, I guess, at this point who has a list of who is okay and who's missing.
Are there parents in the area?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of. All right, well, we'll let you go down there and continue again. Repeat the girl's name again and that phone number one more time.
It's Buffy Jo Grenier Fitch and Alan Fitch, 8860661.
And that is the 818 area code.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, sir. Tom Pascucci. Be careful going down on the ladder there. While he does that, we'll try to update you on the situation again. There's going to be another news conference from the battalion chief here who's in charge of this rescue operation at 10 o'clock. But as we have been telling you, they have confirmed the death toll right now in this apartment units behind me at 14. That is the number that they are sticking with. 9 people have been rescued. Now, we told you earlier, we talked to someone who said it was an act of God that he was able to walk out of that apartment. We have tape of him, so why don't we go to that and you can hear for yourself what he had to say.
Who helped you out?
3 men dragged us out.
Civilians?
Civilians.
You hurt?
Neighbors. My ankle and my forearm.
That's it?
That's it.
Joe Kalita said it was an act of God that he was able to be safely pulled from the first floor apartment units after the second and third stories collapsed on top. He doesn't know how he did it. Other people are looking for loved ones. The gentleman you're holding up is who?
It's Adam Slotnick.
Slotnick?
Slotnick,
Right.
S-L-O-T-N-I-C.
He looks to be about 25.
27 years old.
All right. He lived in the bottom floor apartment.
Lived in the bottom floor about halfway back.
Haven't heard a thing from him.
Nope. They've, no, they haven't found him. And, you know, I have a feeling he's still in there. They just haven't gotten to him.
Well, we're looking for the lady in the red hair there. Her name is Carol Runnings. And we flew in from Phoenix, Arizona. And right now we're just checking all the shelters and the hospitals to see if we found her or if anybody's seen her. We've heard from everybody else, our friends and family, but she's the only one we have not heard from.
Where did she live, on the first floor?
She lived on the first floor, possibly inside the units closer to the pool. So we're understanding that the only units that have collapsed are the ones that are on the exterior part, not on the interior.
So she would be okay.
We assume she's okay.
That the buildings on the inside shifted and fell, you know.
Is there any accounting why she hasn't